Welcome back to another True Crime Wednesday. I was about to say Friday, my apologies. I do apologize for being about 15 minutes later, so I wanted to finish getting this thumbnail just right. I'm bringing back the original titles that I initially had for my videos on Twitch, and that ended up going on YouTube as well. So just wanted to go and get this all taken care of and all this and make sure it was just the perfect thumbnail for this. Now, I want to clarify something very quick for those that might be reading how I posted the description of this video. No, I am not the person who did this. No, I have no idea who did it, nor am I affiliated. However, I do believe this is just the beginning of these attacks. And there's some news articles that are even showing the same thing. It's kind of, at least. They're showing that it's very, very reminiscent of some recent shootings that have occurred this year and years prior. But they were all attacking substations. Now, I'm not believing the current hype when they're talking about the quote-unquote far right and neo-Nazis and all these, eco-terrorists. There's something going on here. This seems a little suspicious, and the timing couldn't be better. And when I say better, I don't mean like for us, because no, this is never a good thing. It's 35,000 people without power as of yesterday. Still. So this is not good by any means. However, there is something sinister going on here, because certain agencies are already blaming specific groups, saying we found things on this and there's people doing this. Well, look at Patriot Front, for instance. Anybody that's not calling them out as feds already is, well, they're blind. I'm sorry to say. Anybody that's saying that, I'm sorry if you're a viewer and you don't see that. I do apologize for that. But Patriot Front, they're feds. We know the Proud Boys were infiltrated, right? We know that Antifa, same thing. We know they were up to no good anyways, but there's feds involved. There's handlers. Now, I'm not going to go on my tirade like I normally would have on Twitch or anything like this. No, this is a business, so I'm not going to do that. But we are going to go over some evidence that shows some things that are just a little odd. And we're not going to get into the spreadsheet quite yet. I'm still working on that. In fact, there might actually be another video on this next week. Potentially even sooner. It could even be as early as maybe a surprise one on Friday. I don't know yet. Just depends on what kind of data is revealed and what I can find. I've been digging on this for a few hours now. I had just recently heard about it, but I didn't hear a whole lot, and I just decided, well, let's dig in, because, well, this is kind of scary if you think about it. Somebody's attacking our power. But who? Who has motive? And the thing that really drove me to this is it's people blaming far-right extremists, neo-Nazis, and, the usual the FBI likes to blame. And, I mean, this is something you can go fact-check myself. They do typically blame the far-right. Or they'll blame people just that are conservatives. MAGA, America, things like they like to blame this. And this is a common occurrence. It has been for quite a few years now. They like to blame anybody that's moderate, like centrist, basically, all the way to the right. Because really where the blame does not fall, it's left. You're on the left side of the political spectrum. But even then, you don't go up too high either. As you go too high, you don't go down too low, because then you start becoming what they also consider to be an extremist, and they'll even go as far as even kind of clumping you with the right, even though you're literally left. It's bizarre. So, I was going to go and bring up my political side so I can show you guys. This is where I technically affiliate. Because I'm a libertarian, technically speaking, just based on my ideology. Now, however, as a business, I mean, I'm non-biased. If you guys have listened to Real News Now with Strange Investigations, you'd know I crack some jokes, but I just point out what's actually going on and not. There's no speculation, right? There's some things I might speculate, but I make it very, very clear I'm speculating. But even then, I don't bring my political influence in on things as much as had a few people already tell me I do. But I literally listened and listened and listened, and other people that have listened to it was like, no, you literally don't bring your political ideology into it. So just want to make that very, very clear. That being said, when it comes to these substation attacks, they are blaming their typical ones. They're also claiming, oh, well, these drag queen story hours. This is, they literally plan these attacks during this time, and you've got an entire community in that area actually saying, this is, there's no way this is a mere coincidence. It literally shut down, and, I mean, it's coincidence. To some degree, it's coincidence. It's also being kind of used as a patsy. It wasn't necessarily because of this. It wasn't out of hate for this. I can tell you this right now. There is an extremist group doing this. We would have heard about it. When it's actually an extremist group, we hear about it very, very quickly. The police all of a sudden, they're able to go and they're able to just lock in on it. The FBI, the CIA, everybody, the Department of Homeland Security, all this, they all lock in real quick when it's a group. Even when it's a lone shooter. But now this is where you get into the politics of things. When there's politics involved, all of a sudden, some law enforcement, I would actually argue there's a pretty good portion of law enforcement, they literally back off. They don't touch it. Now, I'm not sure it's because they're being handled by some politician or some group, some shadowy group or anything. I don't know. Is a lot of the time it's a mix of things. Sometimes even the sheriff or a police chief or maybe it's the mayor, things like this. I mean, all sorts of people get involved, and they're like, nope, keep your hands off this. Do not touch it. And that's the sad part. These people die. Things we need, to survive or things we need to thrive, they're taken away. People's livelihoods are totally just out of whack then. So, why do I say this, though? Some of you might wonder this. Some of you might truly wonder this. Why would I say that this is just something that seems like it's being used as a political tool? Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying people aren't affected. It's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying here is this is orchestrated. It does definitely fit the bill to be orchestrated. Now, that is pure speculation, technically speaking, but it does appear this way. And that's just based on everything I just already explained. So, but it's coincidental with a lot of these things. Now, we know that we've been seeing a lot of these drag queen story hours showing up, and we know that we've seen two political parties get highly involved with it. One of them being Antifa, and the other one just being people that just don't support it, coming out and protesting. We haven't really seen a whole lot of violence coming from it, but we do know that it's armed Antifa that does show up to usually protect these events. Now, me personally, I don't condone it. I don't think it's appropriate, especially after seeing what goes on in these things. I mean, it's not appropriate for children at all. I mean, doing drag queen stuff, it's not really appropriate for kids. That's just where I stand on this. And I know there's many parents that also agree with me on this, but there's also those parents that don't. They take their kids to these events. I don't think it's appropriate. It's because it just gets very sexualized, and I don't think that's right at all. In fact, I know that's not right for kids to take part in. Let kids be kids. Just that's the thing. We don't need kids going to these things. Their brains are so moldable that it rots them. They don't need to be thinking about anything sexual. They don't need to be worrying about, wearing dresses and and dressed up with extreme amounts of makeup and all that. No. Let kids be kids. But the thing is, when it comes down to it, this is what it seems to be. They're pushing for. I do apologize for my tirade there, but that's something they're pushing for, and it's a little bizarre. Now, why are they trying to go and pit left against right? Why are they trying to pit these groups against each other? It keeps division, and it keeps the political strength strong. Let's start diving into this, though. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. first off, let's go and look at all the subs. Well, actually, yeah, let's look at the little spreadsheet I've made so far so you guys can see what I'm talking about. It gets a little weird. And there we go. If you look on here, these shootings took place on Saturday, December 3rd in North Carolina in Moore County. There's 2 shootings. 35,000 right now. Well, as of yesterday. Or actually, today is Wednesday, so yeah, be as of today. 35,000 people are without power. So that's a problem. You know, we'd have to go and look at, of course, you know, how big is Moore County, how many substations they have. But there's 2 substations were shot. Now, one of these is everything I've read, and we're going to go over these same articles so I can show you what I'm talking about. 100 bullets were fired in approximately 20 minutes using a quote-unquote high-powered rifle. This is directly what Newsweek listed as. So you have a couple different agendas here. A high-powered rifle. What exactly is a high-powered rifle? They can literally just dub this as it's a hunting rifle. Now, they're probably going to say it was an AR-15, right? This is where I have to ask the question. Does anybody know what AR stands for? Oh, wait. And I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to go and show you guys directly. Just to show you this. See, there's even Snopes is going and backing me on this one. I'm actually going to use them because it's funny. Oh, did the internet cut out? What the heck? This is bizarre. Yeah, let's use Snopes real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. Does AR and AR-15 stand for assault rifle? No. Armalite. See? Let me bring it up. Armalite rifle, right here. Okay, so I want to make that very clear, but this is what people are going to list it as. I guarantee it. What is this high-powered rifle? We don't know. We don't even know. We're not even being told what caliber the ammunition is. All we're being told is they were able to damage enough that 35,000 people are without power. That's all we know. Now you also break this down. It's about it's a little more than like every, it's like, I think it's every 12 seconds. Or every 12, yeah, it was every 12 seconds there was, am I right on that? Yeah, so it would come out to 5. Every 12 seconds there was a round fired. Now you got to keep in mind, what rifle carries 100 rounds? Are we talking a high-powered magazine, or as they would call it? We're not talking about this quote-unquote high-capacity magazine. The thing is, I mean, there are those. You know, I'll show you real quick. 100 round capacity magazines. Just to show you they do exist, but they come in as drums. You can get them, but see, they're drum magazines. So you got a couple different options here. Either they are incredibly fast at reloading, but even then, every 12 seconds, you know, unloading an empty magazine and then going into another one. Yeah, it doesn't take much time, okay? But it also depends on the rifle you're using, how close it was, all this. There's a lot of different things that are going to take place in this. Every 12 seconds, they fired a round at the substation, or at these substations. We don't even know how many rounds were fired at each substation. They're not even giving us any details. They're super, super vague. All they said was they fired approximately 100 more than 100 bullets in 20 minutes. That's not fast. That's really slow, actually. When I discussed the on Twitch the Stephen Paddock shooting, the one over in Vegas, we broke that down. In fact, I might have broken it down on here. Yeah, I think we might have broken it down on YouTube. I'll have to take a look. But you guys are more than welcome to take a look. It'll be under the Strange Investigations playlist. Or you can just go look under my live shows and you can see that. A little strange, because when it comes down to it, that guy was firing a lot. And he was also like basically darting around. He wasn't able to make all these shots. We show how it's impossible to have made those shots from something. So this guy's got 100 shots, or over 100 shots, in 20 minutes. So I'd like to know how far away the police station was. You know, there's all these details here we need to go and calculate out. Was this a defunded police department? Because if it was, that's going to make a difference, because that means fewer police officers. Where were the police officers this time? Are they at this alleged, there's this drag queen show or whatever where, we don't know. We don't know. We don't know if Antifa was even at these things. We don't know. And that's the thing. We need all the details around this before we can actually fully make a determination. What was this? What was really going on here? See, that's where things get a little wonky here, because we don't have the details. But I want to show this off here, okay? We're going to go over the article so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Just a second, though. So you look right here, July 2022, you have the Keystone Pipeline. There's a shooting there. Okay, we don't even know, I don't have all the details on that currently. I'm still, as I was digging around on this one alone and see if there's any others. Allegedly there was one in Washington. This is what I had heard earlier. I didn't see anything on it, but there's allegedly one or two in Washington, one here in Oregon, and then like one in California. I'm pretty sure they were mixed up. Pretty sure they were mixed up, but this is what I had heard. And I guess they've been happening all over the country. Yeah, I seen these two. That's all I saw. But 100 rounds in 20 minutes is not a whole lot. But we got to see that there was, like, for instance, they were hitting infrastructure that had power. You had the Keystone Pipeline blowing out, I believe, destroying a generator there, trying to destroy one. Then you had the PG&E one over in California, which that was a chemical spill. You had Southern Oklahoma, I believe it was Southern Oklahoma, where it was the oil spill. I believe that's what it was. I have to go, well, I have it pulled up so you guys will be able to see that anyways. And then you got the Metcalfe County and PG&E, which they just straight up failed. That was 2013. The other four, or other five, were all this year. So it's a little bizarre. But let's get into these. So we're going to Newsweek here. And yes, I'm going to read them because I want to go over the verbiage. And you'll see what I'm talking about when and you'll probably understand now why I'm wanting to go over the verbiage here. There have been physical attacks on power substations in multiple states in recent months, according to a new report. About 35,000 people excuse me, in North Carolina's Moore County remain without power on Wednesday after the substations were damaged in what authorities described as a, quote, targeted, end quote, attack at the weekend. Authorities said the outages began on Saturday after one or more people drove up to the substations, breached the gates, and opened fire on them. See, so now we know they were pretty freaking close. And they're saying one or more people breached, which means they had their vehicle and bam, went right through it more than likely, or they cut the locks or something. But they were able to get through. We don't know how many people. They don't know either. And opened fire on them. Moore County Chief Deputy Richard Manis told Newsweek on Wednesday that investigators are, quote, working around the clock to determine, end quote, who is responsible, quote, but are not ready to publicly identify, end quote. I'm curious about this county here. I'm curious about this deputy. chief deputy. There's they're not ready to publicly identify. Right. Now, News Nation has reported that a memo from federal law enforcement revealed similar attacks have taken place in other states. Power companies in Oregon and Washington have reported physical attacks on substation using hand tools, arson, firearms, and metal chains, possibly in response to an online call for attacks on critical infrastructure. The memo says in part. The recent attacks, criminal actors bypass security by cutting the fence links, there it is, lighting nearby fires, shooting equipment from a distance, and throwing objects over the fence and onto equipment. Does this sound like far-right groups? The Proud Boys ever do anything like this? No. Have we heard about Patriot Front doing anything like this? No. And they're feds. Who have we seen this type of activity from? Sorry to say this, but this is the truth here. We see this from far-left groups. Far-right groups don't typically do this. And how do I know this? Because they like to go to the protests themselves. They're more about confrontation. This is just what you can literally look at this. This is generally what you see. Typically, not always. There's definitely has been groups like this, but if you look on the far left, Antifa, and groups like that, what happens? Not only do they partake in that stuff, going and confronting people and going to people's homes and stuff like that, but no, they'll do shady things like this. They did some things on some railroad. I don't remember exactly what they did, but they damaged the rails. Now we know that occurred. That's all been detailed. So, what's going on? Who's doing this? Is this really a far-right group? FBI told News Nation that it's too early to know the motive for the attack that caused widespread outages in Moore County, but there have been similar cases in North Carolina and other states in recent months. The Bureau has been contacted for further comment. Now watch this. Ahead of November 8th's midterm elections, Newsweek documented the digital dissemination of a wide array of plots, manuals, and manifestos by domestic extremists seeking to incite acts of sabotage against energy sites, especially electricity substations across the U.S., and examples of such attacks. Those included an act of vandalism that caused, quote, fairly significant, end quote, damage at a transformer servicing the Keystone XL pipeline in South Dakota, and a shooting that caused a chemical spill at a Pacific Gas and Electric site in California in July. Just showed off those two right there. In March, thousands of customers in southern Oklahoma were reportedly left without power after bullets riddled a transformer site, causing a, quote, major oil leak, end quote. November 11th, more than 12,000 people lost power in North Carolina's Jones County after a substation owned by Carteret Craven Electric Cooperative was damaged by criminal vandalism. The vandals damaged transformers and caused them to leak coolant oil, the company said. Investigation into that incident is ongoing, and no suspects have been identified or arrested. Keep that in mind here. That long? Haven't been able to identify anybody? I'd want to go and see if there's traffic cameras anywhere near there, or if there's any businesses or homes near there that had cameras. Somebody had to have had something. See, now you can check the traffic. These police aren't doing that. Why? Why? Us regular average Joes have access to this. The average American can just literally look this up online. You can find these things. Was there fire cam photos around there? You can start tracking vehicles. By tracking vehicles and all this, you can start getting the license plates. When you get the license plates, well, now they have access to that. We technically do too. If you really break it down, we all technically have access to it to some degree. But when it comes down to it, end of the day, the police have these resources, and it's just right there at their fingertips. FBI has this. Department of Homeland Security has this. Now, this is the thing. If we start finding people that are crossing these state lines to do this, and they've been tied to other ones, now you have yourself a federal investigation. Why isn't the Department of Justice looking into this? And we don't know if they are or not. But now you can start looking at patterns. Is this really a group, some online extremist group? Well, look at their tactics. This isn't something that the right would do. I'm going to explain why, and it's going to sound a little kind of annoying, I'm sure. That's fine. But look at the jobs that the right generally takes. Okay? What do they usually have? Things like mechanics, electricians. They're usually blue-collar jobs. Not all, but you see a lot of them, they're blue-collar. Then you got the left. What do they do? Well, I know this is going to sound really, really messed up, but if you look at it, you got people that are more concerned with feelings on the left. The farther left you go, the more they're concerned about feelings. Okay? Now, does feeling trump truth? That's the one question I have, and the answer is no. The truth, it will hurt, and we've got to see this, and Hollywood's even promoted that at one point with a movie that was between Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson. He goes, I want the truth. And he goes, you can't handle the truth. Well, he got quite emotional about it, but it's true. The truth sometimes is just too much. It sucks. I know. It absolutely does. I mean, look at things like Operation Mockingbird or Operation Paperclip. It's like, oh, man. The United States fumbled here. Or look at the David Crowley case. Truth is, David Crowley and his family, they didn't kill each other. Well, his immediate family, I'm bringing up here, his wife, his child, none of them killed each other. We know this. I've already been able to break that down. He didn't do it, nor did his family. So we know these are some truths. And we know the government likes to shy away for a few different reasons. Either A, too hard for them to go and look into, and they don't want to admit defeat. Oh, the government was just wrong. Oh, almighty law enforcement was wrong, and they'd have to go walk this back. They don't like to do that. The government likes to remain not stoic, but I'm right, you're wrong, no matter what. More often than not. But we got to see this here, so we know that they're tracking the Newsweek, they're tracking it back a little bit. So we're going to go a little bit further in here. Hopefully it loads quicker. As rising fuel costs threaten the political hopes of Democrats in the upcoming midterm elections, an ominous chorus of online chatter among domestic extremists in the dark corners of the internet advocating attacks on critical infrastructure across the nation may pose an even greater threat to U.S. consumers. Newsweek has obtained 2 documents that offer an insight into the scope of the threat, including reports of several actual attacks that have happened in the past few months. The first is a corporate intelligence security memo detailing at least 15 instances over the course of just over a year, showing suspected extremists openly threatening and calling for acts of sabotage against energy sites, especially electricity substations, but also including other targets such as cell towers and pipelines. Once again, this is where you start getting into some shaky territory. Do we cross this line and talk about it? Yes, well, we're going to. But you're going to see what I'm talking about here. Material included documents that could serve to help groups and individuals in carrying out such attacks, including maps, manuals, and instructions on the vulnerabilities of electricity infrastructure and readily available or accessible methods to disrupt their operation. For one, have any of you been able to obtain any of these the people that were rioting, okay, where Antifa's been, when they've rioted? If you haven't, that's okay. It's totally okay to not have that stuff. I get it. I've been to these things. I don't support Antifa. I don't support BLM. I don't support any of these organizations or groups or anything like that. I don't support it. Now, I'm not saying, like, for instance, with Black Lives Matters, It's not about race for me. I called it as a scam early on. You got to see there was businesses and the political elite, and you got to see people taking advantage of other people. That's what we got to see the whole time. And was I proven correct? Well, you don't have to look farther than, for instance, the Black Lives Matters leaders. How many houses did they buy? Well, then where did they buy them? And look at the people around them that they were living by. Now, I want to make this very clear. This does matter because it has nothing to do with race here. They made it about race and it has nothing to do with race. These are con artists. These leaders and all this, there were people in charge of it. Absolute con artists. They're trying to go and play on the heartstrings of people, which they did. I'm not saying the people involved with the group itself, just regular people go into these things. I don't believe they were wholeheartedly bad people. I don't wish death upon them. I don't wish any of that. However, that being said, they were duped. End of the day, they were just straight up duped. It sucks. And it sucks to hear that people have been duped. Especially if someone hearing that was part of that or still believes that. Now, their message, I get their message to some degree. However, I'm not going to get into it too much because this is getting into my political affiliation and it gets into my own ideology. Now, I don't think there's any race. I just want to make that very clear. There's no single race that's superior to another. None. You have people that are smarter and you have people that are dumber. That's really what it breaks down to, and it has nothing to do with skin color or gender or sexuality or anything like this. It comes down to how much did a person strive, okay? And I'm not looking at anybody's situation. And anybody. There's people that have grown up with absolutely nothing. They were, horrible, horrible childhoods, and they rise up. And then they're making millions of dollars. We know that happens. And especially today, look at all the millionaires that are out there. Look at all the people that have made all these side hustles. Awesome job for those people that have been able to do this. I mean, I commend them. They've been able to go and muscle. They've been able to go and muscle up and, get that money. I'm not going to get into the side hustles because there's all sorts of different side hustles that are legal and everything that you can do, and they're making just tons and tons of money. But I don't look at it as a race thing. No ethnicity. I'm not looking at that. That has nothing to do with it. Gender has nothing to do with it. Nor does where you were born. No. It's your own personal drive. Okay? Well, that's what these people did. The ones that are in charge. The ones that got behind that movement and all this. Behind Antifa and all this. We got to see this. You get to see that they were making money hand over fist. Now, Antifa is a different story than BLM. But that being said, I was getting off topic here. When it comes down to it, if you go and start looking at their material they were handing out to each other, people come into these events, these riots, all this, these attacks, the public humiliation these guys were doing, or these people were doing. Yeah, go check out some of their little pamphlets and all this. Really, really bizarre, disturbing stuff they're really preaching out there. I've got several. I went down to quite a few of these different little, before they turned into riots, I went down to the protests. When there was a clash and all this, I got to see it firsthand. I can tell you a lot of the time the media was wrong. What did they do? They pushed it far right. Oh, it's the Proud Boys. Every time, the Proud Boys. It's not true. I'm not saying the Proud Boys never did anything. They did. I witnessed it. But a lot of this stuff came into retaliation. Okay? Not always, but more often than not. But you got Antifa throwing things, doing things, hunting people down, going after specific journalists. Andy No, for instance. I don't condone it. There's no need for the violence. None. Almost anything we do nowadays, what can you do? You can talk it through. Somebody doesn't agree with you? All right, move on. Don't hang out with those people. Don't talk to those people. Avoid them. They're going to still cause problems. Unless they escalate to the point of they're literally calling for violence. It's just words. It sucks to hear, but it's just words. They could be going after your character and all this. Well, that's where you start getting a libel and all this. So there's other routes, people. Come on. But if you start looking at the things they hand out at these things, they almost have direct instructions on what they want you to do, what they want people to do. When they're having their meetings, same thing. This is where you want to go. On top of that, the fires that occurred in Oregon. There was an officer that literally, he just called out exactly what it was. I talked to several officers. They said the same thing. There's people in vehicles going through, setting these fires. These weren't naturally occurring fires. Majority of them weren't, at least. Sure, there's probably a couple, but majority of the fires were caused. They were man-made by people going by, throwing Molotov cocktails, coming by with lighter fluid and matches. People with just lighters coming by, but starting fires on purpose. Now, we know that this is the type of tactics that they literally had meetings about. I'm in contact with some people already. I'm trying to go and get some of the pamphlets, all the different kind of instruction manuals and all this. But once I can get these from these people, from this group, once I've got these things, this is just going to prove my point further. Once I get it, I'm going to go and post it up so you guys will be able to see it as well. It's disturbing. But this is the stuff they're literally trying to go and convince people to go and do these nasty, nasty things. This screams that. Now, look at the far right. What do they do? Are they organized? Yeah, they're organized. Are they talking about hurting infrastructure? No. Good majority of them don't talk about that at all. And once again, the ones that do, what do you generally see? They've been infiltrated by the feds. Why are the feds just trying to go and take out the far right? It's because of ideology. And even then, you look at the ideology of the far left, it's not better. Then you look at the ones that just, are all these actually far right? No. You just have regular conservatives being targeted for this. PTA meetings, FBI targets. We're seeing the same type of thing going on here. So just want to note that. I know it's a little bit of a ramble there, but it's the same kind of thing we get to see from Antifa. Okay? I'm not saying it is Antifa. I'm not saying it's not. But this is the similar thing we get to see. Okay? This is where you start seeing, look at the Christmas tree bomber that down over in downtown Portland. We know he talked to feds. What happened? They give him schematics. They give him all sorts of things. Allegedly, the Boston bomber was the Boston Marathon bomber allegedly had some similar connections as well. Kids. I digress, though. So, behind those posts, or those behind the posts, which were shared across various online platforms and chat rooms, express ties to a number of anti-government ideologies. Hey, I don't like big government either, so I get it, but attacking people, you see this from the far left too. What is a government to people like Antifa? Well, they should be actually labeled as fascist, if you will. They're the ones that are holding them back, and they're the ones that are going to hurt them. But, okay, they don't label it that. Just certain groups. Mostly far-right and neo-Nazi beliefs. Sure, okay. Show the proof, please. But also including eco-militancy and at least one user who shared messaging supportive of the Islamic State militant group, or ISIS. Oh, okay. See, now they're trying to go and blame ISIS. Well, why? How did ISIS get its arms? The U.S. I'm sorry, our government did that. We know this because, there was people like John McCain, for instance, took part in that. We got to see Operation Fast and Furious, which went to the cartels. What did the cartels have ties to? Oh, that's right. They had ties to ISIS. Wow. And who did that? That was under Obama's administration. You see what I'm saying here? This gets a little sketch. So, that's okay. That's okay. People have got their opinions on this. That's totally okay, but I just want to go and point out some obvious things here. These are things we know that actually occurred. If you have not read about Operation Fast and Furious, I highly suggest checking it out. You'll understand what I'm talking about here. While you're at it, look up Uranium One and look at the ties to the Obama administration, which also was selling uranium. They got into the hands of the Russian government. So, I mean, there's that too. Keep an eye on that. We're talking, I believe it's, what was the exact term? But it was like, it was plutonium that was good enough to be used in warheads, from what I understood. But yeah, let's go and give that to countries we allegedly were enemies with. Right. A number of these same messages were featured in a second document obtained by Newsweek, an intelligence assessment issued this month by the California State Threat Assessment Center, or CSTAC, which cited government intelligence reports prepared by the Department of Homeland Security, among other sources. This report went beyond simply exposing the desires of those seeking to do harm to also include recent notable instances of groups or individuals acting out on such fantasies. This included an act of vandalism and causing, quote, fairly significant, end quote, damage at a transformer servicing the Keystone Pipeline of South Dakota, and a shooting that caused a chemical spill at a Pacific Gas and Electric, or PG&E, site in California, both of which occurred this past July. In March, thousands of customers in southern Oklahoma, we already read all this, that's okay. In February, 3 men pled guilty to planning to recruit followers to attack electricity substations in a bid to take down the U.S. power grid. It cost the government millions of dollars, which, who pays for that? That would be us. And possibly, or quote, possibly spark a race war, end quote, the assessment found. Okay. Who was the last guy that tried to go and start a race war? Think about that. Well, one of the last big names we know of. Think Helter Skelter, Charles Manson. The Manson family cult is actually the one that was the last big one. They tried to go and spark an actual race war. Are we looking at some followers of Manson? But even then, look at his ties. You got to look at that. That's another important part. Quote, we assess that domestic violent extremists, or DVE, will likely remain a threat to the electricity subsector through 2023 as DVEs share more detailed information stated as authoritative to convince adherents that they have the requisite knowledge of targets, vulnerabilities, tools, and techniques to succeed, the assessment stated. I would love to see this assessment. And then they go on to show this. This is the part that just blows my mind here. Then they show a map of all of our power plants, electricity transmission lines. What are you doing? Newsweek, you're fumbling hard here. Why? Don't need to show it. Most of these people probably don't even have the information, in all honesty. Or if they do, once again, it's the feds. This is Fed-tied people. This is exactly what this is here. I'm not saying it is directly as the FBI or anything, but this is a little bizarre here. The report offers a glimpse into a murky world of largely anonymous individuals conspiring to undermine the power grid in furtherance of radical beliefs. Even the attacks that do take place, causing outages and damage, often go underreported. Ugh. Basically what they're saying is a lot of these probably don't even happen. One high-profile exception is a still unresolved 2013 case in which a seemingly organized group of perpetrators cut fiber optic cables and opened fire against a PG&E substation in Metcalfe, California. Already noted that. Since then, there have been numerous shootings targeting energy infrastructure in various parts of the country, including incidents not included in the two reports, which detailed bigger and more destructive plans to plunge the U.S. into darkness. Another option we have here is this could be outside agents. Who gains from this? Does the American people, do we gain from this? No. Would that start a race war? No. Because what does electricity have to do with race? It's just like, what does daylight savings have to do with race? And CNN tried to promote that too. It's just like bizarre. Brian Harrell, who served as Assistant Secretary for Infrastructure Protection at the Department of Homeland Security from December 2018 to November 2020, is among those who have expressed concern over these threats. DVEs are looking to make an impact with media attention, Harrell told Newsweek. Today, we see active targeting and nefarious discussions in all corners of the dark web and chat rooms. Given the criticality of the energy sector, it's no surprise they are a prime target. Thankfully, the sector has made significant investments and improvements to keep bad actors out of critical substations and other sites. BS, for one. A lot of these things, you can look at pictures of them, it's like a chain link fence with some barbed wire up top. How does that keep people out again? And especially they're going at from, I'm pretty sure they're getting the high ground on them. You know, they're literally pulling an Obi-Wan Kenobi on the Anakin of these substations here and just blasting away at them because they have the high ground. They're able to go and just bam, 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 get right in there. But even then, chain link fence, what do they got to do? Just stick the barrel through there. They can ensure they're firing at it then. I mean, no-brainer things like this. It's like, we'll put up some walls. Maybe, you know, there's more you can do. There's a lot more they can do, but they're not doing it. I know it costs money, but if you're talking about protection, the chain link fence versus just no protection at all, it's almost debatable just to have the no protection. But the chain link fence is going to deter things like boars, or wild boar. It's going to deter bears. It's going to deter. I mean, it's going to deter a lot of these animals, especially put the barbed wire up there. It will deter animals. People, not so much. The utility industry is aware of these threats due to our ongoing relationship with our national security partners, he said, noting that measures were being taken to shore up defenses. Right. While any threat is significant, companies have worked to build redundancy and resilience into the power grid, Harrell said. Critical services that all Americans depend on should never be used as part of a domestic terrorism plot. This truly was domestic terrorism, if it is. Which, once again, all it would take is it having to be Antifa. Well, you already know they're terrorists. Look up the definition for terrorism just before anybody jumps on me or jumps on my throat for this. Literally, it has to be politically motivated violence. That's exactly what that is. So, therefore, terrorism. Look at the riots. Politically motivated terrorism, or, violence. And what happened? Riots, attacking police, going after reporters that just don't have their same ideology. What happens with that? It comes down to political ideology. Therefore, it is political. It is politically driven violence. End of story. These are just straight up definitions here. Next up, we have Manny Channel, who's the Senior Vice President of the North American Electronic Reliability Corporation, or NERC. Almost, it's close to NERC, sorry. And CEO of the Electricity Information Sharing and Analysis Center, EISIC, said the issue is also on his radar. Love how his name is Cancel, too. Cancel told Newsweek that while Isaac is currently not aware of any specific threats to the bulk power system or electrical assets from domestic violent extremists, this is a serious threat, and one that we actively monitor. Different extremist groups maintain a long-standing interest in disrupting the status quo through the use of vandalism and sabotage. Okay, so terrorism. Including promoting physical attacks on critical grid infrastructure, such as transmission towers, transformers, and substations through online propaganda. Once again, if you look at it, doesn't make a difference which side you look. What's the whole end game here? You start shutting down American counties and stuff, what are you doing? You're shutting down American businesses. What do you do with that? You're shutting down American families, increasing your homeless population. Who would gain from that? Does the right? No, they like to thrive. They like to thrive. I'm just being honest how this works. Then you go look at the left with Antifa. A lot of them like to work, these Antifa guys. Some of them do, not all. They want to go and have, we went to college, so pay all of our college back. We don't want to have to pay that. What is that? That's funny how that works. That's socialism. What are you doing here? The right doesn't hit that. Socialism is a left-leaning thing, I'm sorry to say.